Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the simple workforce management software for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Adam Hamadache, CEO and founder of digital agency Formula. Coming up on today's show, Adam speaks a marketing truth.
Can't work with a marketing partner in the same way that you order socks off Amazon.
Phil reveals something he loves to do. Win-win-win. And Adam drops this corker.
You don't buy a dog and bark yourself.
All that and so much more as Adam chats us through his brilliant journey so far. Adam really doesn't hold back his thoughts in many places throughout the chat, and by crikey does he have some brilliant ones of those. A load of fun to boot as well, so please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like and a share wherever you can. Enjoy. And a massive Hospitality Meets welcome to Adam Hamadache.
Thank you, Phil.
How you doing?
Yeah, really good, really good. Great to be here. I'm a big fan of the show, so I feel like this is a big step in my career to have made it onto the Hospitality Meets podcast.
Bless you. You're the one. You're the one. Yeah. Stock standard joke that you have to make as a podcaster. But no, that's very good to hear. Thank you very much. And actually, we shared a podcast a couple of weeks ago for the Institute of Hospitality, and it dawned on me then that you were somebody that was on my radio and that we should just move it forward. So here we are. We're having the chat today. Where do we find you today? So this is the great thing, actually, and we'll talk about this in the fullness of discussion. It's always nice to podcast with somebody who does podcasts because you've already got the equipment, you've got a setup, you kind of know how it works. So no pressure, but I'm assuming this will go off without a hitch.
You've teed me up for probably for failure there, Phil, but I appreciate that. So I'm coming in from Surrey. I live just between Guildford and Godalming in Surrey today.
Very good. And for the people out there who don't know who you are and what you do, just give us a kind of snapshot of what it is that you do.
Yeah, so I run Formula. It's probably what I'm best known for. Formula is a digital growth agency, digital marketing agency for hospitality. We've been trading now for about 13 years. Before that, I was a director of a hotel, a small sort of 23-bedroom boutique property that I was involved in. And before that, I was probably calling, if you're a hotelier, calling you up saying, I've got a hotel promotion that is going live in the Times or the Telegraph, back in the days when those national newspaper promotions were sort of a wonderful source of booking. So that was sort of really my first entry into working with hotels as I do today. So sadly, those promotions used to be brilliant. They no longer work quite in the same way. But yeah, today we're a digital agency, been trading here for a long time, and recently we launched Score Plan as well, which is a piece of software that helps you understand your total visibility, especially as AI search is really changing things. So yeah, that's me.
For sure. I had written that down as a discussion point for sure, because I mean, you can't really have a conversation with anyone about anything these days, right? Unless you have a chat about AI as well. So you're no different.
Isn't it? Now it's AI.
That's right. Yeah. Whatever it will be next year, who knows? But yeah, I mean, you ran the risk then of reversing us through your career, but I'm going to do the opposite now and take you all the way back to the beginning. You mentioned what your first role in or associated with hospitality was, but take us back to before that, school, career. How did careers start presenting themselves to you?
Well, I'll probably take us back to, I think it was maybe year 8. So what would I have been? I don't know, maybe 14, something like that. And there was a week's work experience, and so you basically you go and work for free for a week to get a full week of work. And some of my friends had really quite exciting, working in various different places. But I remember distinctly asking, I would love to be working in the Crown Plaza Hotel where I grew up in Cambridge. And the allure of it was really something for me. I didn't. I went to work in Stead and Simpson shoe shop for a week, which was.
I mean, it's very similar.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And it was really quite bland. But I remember that particular experience, thinking I would love to work in a hotel. As I became an adult, I worked in bars and golf clubs and restaurants and did front of house, back of house. Loved working as a chef for about a year. Was considering that as a sort of a career path. I travelled around Australia and I was working in a fabulous fish restaurant on Circular Quay, right by the Opera House. Was working
Nice.
in the kitchen there, and sort of got promoted. So I was on the grill, which meant I got to call all the orders away because mine always took longer, which I loved because I was just shouting about, and it felt like I was in control of something. And so I loved my time in kitchens there, and then went to university, and then I've sort of found marketing and realized, wow, okay, this is really what I want to be doing. And I've managed to, in my career, merge the two. So I now, my first job, as I sort of talked briefly about, was I worked for this what was quite cool marketing agency based in Soho. I was 22 years old, and I thought I've made it. I've got this really cool agency. It was like brick walls. It was really kind of cool and uber funky. And then I was basically walked in, given a phone, and said, right, we're running a hotel promotion in the Times newspaper. Call all these hotels up and see if they want to do it. So my all of a sudden very glamorous job seemed not so glamorous, but actually I loved it.
Really?
I love
Right.
speaking. Yeah, I love speaking with, and I built up these relationships with mostly lots of country house hotel owners. And I started hearing their problems, and most of it related to how much Booking.com were charging them in commission. And so I really sort of started to understand their challenges and their business models. And then I basically took the learnings from that, and I called up the Telegraph and said, listen, I've been creating hotel offers with the Times for the last few years. Would you do it with me? And bizarrely, at 25, they said yes. And so I was in business and started calling up every hotel owner I knew or that would take my call and say, look, I'm creating a hotel promotion in the Telegraph. Would you like to be involved? And it was a wonderful business model because bizarrely, the paper would give me space for free. The hotels would pay, the cost of one booking, but get something like 25, 30 bookings as a result of it. And what the paper got was, added value to their readers that, drive more paper sales. So it was just this wonderful sort of triangle.
Win, win, win.
Exactly. It was until this small company you might have heard of called Booking.com started to get quite good. And then all of
the devil incarnate.
Yeah. Yes, quite. And
anybody listening from Booking.com, I'm just joking. All right. Or am I? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So the model was working brilliantly, and then even the most loyal of Telegraph readers were seeing these, fabulous hotel promotions involving hundreds of hotels, and then starting saying, I wonder if I could find it cheaper. And of course, they probably could, or certainly much more convenient on Booking.com. So the model was sadly short-lived. But I was left with this. Okay, I understand the problem. The biggest problem, certainly, independent hotels have and still have. In fact, I would argue it's probably worse today than it ever has been. Is how do we convince our customers to not book through an aggregator and come to us direct? Because if we can do that, that makes our margins so much better. We can reinvest in the product. We can hire and train our staff. All of these things can be easily improved if, and the big if, you didn't have to pay quite so much, to these OTAs. So I've been working pretty much ever since to help in every way I can on helping hotels not be quite so reliant on OTAs. And I think, over the last few years, I've, having done it for so long, everyone is banging the drum of, it's a revenue management system. We'll get you more direct bookings. It's a chatbot on your website. We'll get you more direct bookings. And I think certainly I've seen in this, it's still a pertinent issue for so many hoteliers. But I think that the messaging everybody's banging the drum and saying, we'll solve this problem. And actually, I don't think many people are quite in the way that hoteliers need. So anyway, we've gone full circle. Today, very much Formula is all about, driving growth, however, whatever that objective. It could be less reliance on online travel agents. It could be more weddings, or it could be, maximizing visibility where people are searching, like ChatGPT. So that's me in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, I suppose the overarching message from that then is it can't be a one size fits all. Everybody's got their own set of circumstances which will dictate what a good growth strategy looks like for them. You mentioned in earlier on that you had some time as a hotel director, 23
Yes.
bedroom hotel. How did that come about? And I would imagine, because it's like 4 questions in one probably, but I would imagine that serves you well in terms of understanding the actual problem rather than being the outside and seeing the problem. You've actually lived a bit of the problem as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it came about. Somebody I knew in a business network owned this hotel. And we became quite good friends. I explained a little bit about what I was doing at the time. He had a portfolio of hospitality businesses and a property portfolio, but the hotel was sort of a big part of his business. And so we sort of got chatting. We became quite pally. I joined that business, and really my part of my remit was to, still within a marketing capacity, but it meant that I got a little bit deeper than I perhaps had done when there was a client relationship I was now in the hotel, and it was fascinating. There were so many challenges beyond operational. I mean, I wasn't, and nor ever have been operational in these businesses, but the challenges operationally being faced by hoteliers is quite incredible. It was a real insight to just how many things that goes on behind the scenes. And I think what we really tried to achieve with that particular hotel was just a complete standout. Let's really make sure that we really do some extraordinary marketing. It's not just about how can we improve revenue by 20%. It was how do we let's use this as a blank canvas. So one of the things that we did was give away the whole hotel away for free as part of a competition, and just run huge, that produced, naturally we gave it away on a weekend in January when we were perhaps less busy. But, that sort of, kind of, I struggle for a better word than extraordinary, just really something completely different, meant that the press coverage we got was amazing. We built up our Facebook following to 250,000 for a 23 bedroom boutique hotel. Was quite something.
Yeah, that's a few room nights.
Quite a few, yeah. And as a result, of some of these, extraordinary things, we achieved 96% of our bookings direct. Now, I can't take credit for the product. The product was exceptional. Something like 60, 70K went into each room. It was, really quite something. But it allowed us to be creative, and it allowed us to do new and wacky things with the marketing. And I sort of took those lessons and tried to apply them to those clients that that really wanted to. They had the product, but perhaps didn't have the marketing to match. So it was a fabulous learning experience for me being involved in that hotel.
Yeah, no doubt. And I guess as well, it sounds like you also kind of realize that one, yes, okay, you can affect a growth strategy by all manner of different things. Not, there's not, as we said earlier on, there's not a kind of one size fits all approach. But it's one thing to have a strategy that tells the world that you're doing this thing, but it's another thing to then have the cohesion with operations to be able to pull it off. There's no point in doing something that's extraordinary if what you offer day to day is not leveling up to meet that. Then I can imagine that just falls on its face straight away.
Yeah, and I think we still see that today. I think that there has to be. I think what I see where marketing fails, and marketing doesn't always get the best reputation. Anybody with a laptop can now start a marketing agency, and I think that the barrier to entry is so low, and so the average in terms of results and outcomes is also equally quite low. So when everything aligns and you get really good marketing that clearly is demonstrable and showing whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, then that's quite rare. But I think what it comes down to is collaboration. So you've got to have total collaboration and alignment and alignment with everything that's going on. So a good analogy, I suppose, would be it's not a transactional relationship. You can't work with a marketing partner in the same way that you order socks off Amazon.
No,
it's not. Sadly not. you know, and maybe that's stating the obvious, but I do feel that at times, certainly in the decade or more that I've worked with clients, the best relationships are those that really invest into the collaboration and the partnership. So to make sure that the product and the operations and the marketing messaging are all, working together, and having, sometimes quite strong disagreements about what the way forward is, but by having those very sort of open and transparent debates, that's where you get the real gold that can drive the business forward, rather than what should we do? Okay, great, let's do that. I think you've got to work collaboratively.
Yeah, you make a good point as well, though, around that kind of friction with the right intent is a wonderful, wonderful thing. People seem to want to just avoid friction at any costs, but it's in those moments where you actually do uncover, like, either some moment of brilliance, but maybe a pinch point that is just really a blind spot or whatever it is, just allows everybody to kind of to get past it and move forward with something new.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's one thing that we changed with my agency about a year or so ago is we made the quite bold call to actually not have any juniors in the team. So we had some few juniors on the team. They weren't particularly performing. So we now every single person in the Formula team has at least 15 years experience. And the reason we've done that is a couple of reasons. First of all, we don't want to teach people how to write a list. You need to come in and be good at what you do, but mostly it is about the caliber of the conversation internally and externally has just skyrocketed. Now we've got proper grown-ups saying, I don't think that is going to serve you, and let me draw on my experience from this particular role or this particular client. And I think too often I see inexperienced voices being part of that conversation, and they can't share, okay, I don't think we should do this because they just haven't got that experience. And no disrespect to people that don't, but I think to use another example, we've often won business from we win a big account, we take over from the agency that's much bigger than us, and we think, wow, okay, yeah, we've taken business off them, we must be doing something right. And then we're handed over by a 23-year-old account manager who's been managing this account, because it just so happens that actually this account is actually quite small for them in the grand scheme of things. So they've got a junior basically managing it. And I think certainly from when I speak with all the hoteliers that I know, and when we've won business, that is often the case. You're getting young people that are serving what is quite a relatively big budget, and they're expecting a lot, but it's they've gone with a big agency that perhaps don't. There's a bit of imbalance there in terms of how important the account is to each party.
Yeah, absolutely. There was one thing that came up from. I wrote it down, actually. It was just a word that sprung into my mind as I was listening to you recount your career so far. Is simple word: evolution. You seem to have evolved into things that have a requirement in a moment in which you find them, and that has resulted in what you do now. But I would imagine now, as a business owner, like, that evolution has to be as critical as anything to what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, just this week, I've been sitting with my senior team, looking at, right, is this still the right way forward? Like, in terms of what we do for our clients, the biggest change in our world is that search has fundamentally shifted. We've done SEO, or search engine optimization, for best part of 10 years, and I start all my keynote presentations at the moment saying that search, the way customers are searching, has changed more in the last 18 months than it has in the previous 18 years. We're seeing, ChatGPT had 200 million weekly active users 18 months ago. Now it's got 900 million. By another couple of years, by early 2028, it should have surpassed traditional search, which means that if you're not being recommended by AI as opposed to ranked by Google, your visibility, your ability to attract and convert customers has fundamentally shifted. So to bring it back to your point, Phil, I think, yes, I've evolved several times. The challenge, I think, for all of us now is we're not given enough time to really think through, or not really get the, we've got to evolve quickly, I suppose is what I'm saying. Almost, quicker than is comfortable. And that's really challenging.
Yeah, I mean, literally, another point of discussion that I put down was COVID. I mean, nobody wants to talk about COVID, but as a business owner, I was a business owner through COVID as well, and I 100% relate to the words in which you wrote down around, like it was scary ass. There's just no
Yeah.
getting away from it when the phone is ringing in to cease deals and deactivate, rather than ringing in to make some things happen. It's a tough time. But what do you think, as a business owner, you learned through that you think is now activated again here? Because I think, anybody, if an alien arrived on Earth today, so a question I love thinking about, like what would they think? And that the answer at the moment to me, as I just keep coming back to, is that they'd just be watching effectively the world tear itself apart. That's effectively what it seems. We need more adults in the room rather than these children that seem to be not giving us the opportunity to actually adapt to the framework which they want us to operate in.
Yeah, I mean, looking at that really sort of a macro level, they'd be thinking, God, these are an odd bunch, aren't they?
Yeah, indeed.
I think if we
What are
bring
they
that
doing?
quite, yeah, I think if we bring that down to a sort of a level of that we can all understand, especially in hospitality, I think the trading conditions right now that we all as business owners, but obviously hospitality feels the brunt hardest in these instances. The trading conditions are just some of the toughest that I've ever known. And I think, I've had many conversations in the last few weeks with clients and friends that I know operate properties, and they're just saying it is really, really tough. That there is just no let up. The costs keep going up. We're hitting pricing ceilings with our customers. So therefore, we're constantly finding this balance of trying to make sure that we've got the right staff, but staffing is quite hard to come by. Maybe it's a whole other point and discussion point around how hospitality is perceived as not being as quite as a career choice as it perhaps should, or at least certainly as it's perceived on the continent. So I feel at the moment, if to go back to your question, if aliens came down, they'd probably be like, why on earth would you be in hospitality? Because it's really, really tough. And I only see it on from the sort of the periphery. I'm not an operator, so I think it's a really, really challenging time. But there are lots of positives. I think people still there is this wonderful industry that people I think so fondly of and absolutely love. And you meet passionate people all the time in this world. And I think we're in a bit of a rut with it when it comes with regards to how the government is treating business, with regards to what's happening with elsewhere in the world. But I think it is all manageable. You just got to sort of hold on and keep going. But I'm mindful that we've all been saying that for for a few years now.
Yeah, it is one of those. It's a tough one because, like, on the one hand, this career, this industry has been very, very kind to me since I entered the workforce, and I have enjoyed myself to this point, and fully expect to continue to do so. But things are tough. Like, I mean, you cannot get away from that at all. So how do we? The big thing around this show is demonstrating to the world that this is the greatest industry on earth, which I still believe fundamentally. But we know that things are tough. So I suppose there's no real question here. I'm just thinking things through in my head. You're right. Like, if somebody was coming into this for the first time and would look at the state of play, the narrative just constantly seems to be battle, battle, battle. So how do we have to change that, right? I mean, that's the thing. But at the same time, this is where I think probably tech plays a bigger part than it probably currently is. I think hospitality historically has been a bit slow on the uptake when it comes to tech, but I think tech, when done well and correct in all of the right spaces that it can be used, can definitely be the thing that can free up the thing for us to be more human. which is why you probably fundamentally come into this industry in the first place.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, I certainly, I think that there is no shortage of tech providers that are specific to hospitality. But I think if you look at how, if I always think a good example of this is if you've got a gambling app on your phone, which I can't say I use that much, but when I do, and I might put on a small bet, the level of technology in that single app is quite astounding. You can watch football games, you can watch live horse racing, you can the odds are constantly changing, the algorithms are working out exactly what, all within your pocket. The level of tech is absolutely astounding because it's extremely well funded, because gambling companies make a lot of money.
Yeah,
shock
indeed.
And yet when you consider how much data that hotels specifically, but true of all hospitality to a degree, but hotels particularly, because of people are coming and you've got to impart with a lot of information to be able to purchase a room. But that technology, that all of that data historically has not been used particularly well, and I still don't think across the board it's still not used as well as it could be, and that's where I think the opportunity lies to have everything integrated, everything talking to each other. And yet one of the biggest pain points that we have as an agency is, we'll win a new client, okay, we'll get everything set up, do you have access to that? No, okay, fine, we'll find that. And then making sure that a simple one would think a very simple process of making sure that we can accurately track where the bookings are coming from. Was it an ad? Was it organic? Was it social media? And that in itself, to do that accurately, is extremely cumbersome, even with some of the biggest PMS systems. And sometimes it's easy, but often it is not. So I think that the opportunity to really streamline that technology piece within our industry is getting there, and it will things will move forward. AI integration at operational level is starting to come in, and give it another couple of years and there's some real cost savings there, but I still don't think it's going to have the impact that you perhaps suggest, which is well, that will free people up to do the human thing. I think if it's not done in the right ways, it actually can be more cumbersome. So I think technology has got to, the technology companies, and there are some out there that are doing a really good job at really making it life easy for operators that are perhaps not necessarily quite tech savvy anyway. I think we're making some strides, but as an industry, as you suggest, it's still nowhere near perhaps to where it could be.
5-star hospitality means having the right people in the right place at the right time, and that's exactly where RotaCloud can help. RotaCloud is the online platform that makes planning rotas, recording attendance, and managing annual leave easy. Its simple, drag-and-drop interface lets you create and share rotas with your team in minutes, while our built-in budgeting tools mean you'll know exactly how much you're spending on staffing before sending the rota out. RotaCloud also makes life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request time off, and pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be.
Yeah, it's in terms of what's possible right now versus where the knowledge is to be able to get you to the place where you're maximizing its full potential. I think the gap is massive. Because I think the other thing that happens at this time, and it would be the same when the internet came online. Is that even what they call it? Did it come online? I don't know. Where I know, jeez, sound like my dad. Is that I think from a tech perspective, I think that gap is it's something that will sort itself out over time. But I think the rate of change at the moment is so rapid that keeping pace with that is almost impossible. But also because there's so much noise around, you should be doing something, you should be doing X, you should be doing Y. Is there a propensity at the moment for people to just jump in because they feel that they have to, without really fully understanding the reasons why they should be doing something specific. And I'm not talking about a complete and utter tech stack change. I'm just talking about, listening to the noise that's out there and say, oh God, we're not doing anything like that at the moment. We should be doing something about it, but they've just not got a clue on where to get started.
Yeah, but I think that's, I've been, I do a lot of obviously speaking specifically around how AI search is changing, and a little bit around AI implementation, and I think it's telling that just not really trying. I've been approached a few times recently, not to suggest that it's about me, but can you come in and talk to us about what we need to do when it comes to AI? And I think there is a real desire for hotels and hospitality in general not to be left behind, and I think through that, sort of the fear of being left behind, of not moving quick enough, you can either say, okay, who can we bring in as an expert to come and educate us on what we need, or you can sort of jump straight in, two-footed, and say, right, okay, who does the best? Right, let's do that. And I think there is times in these very fast changing times, I think it really pays to pause and listen and learn, rather than go and speak to somebody who's selling you something, whether it be a tech company or otherwise. So, I think, and this is one of the biggest lessons I've learned in life, because I'm the opposite of this. Historically, I had a business coach for a long time who used to just hammer into me, you've got to slow down to speed up. And that it sounds catchy. I didn't really understand it, if I'm honest, when he first said it to me. But it's sort of along the lines of this metaphor that give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. It's that idea.
Yeah.
Just pause for a second, but that's the opposite of what I feel naturally doing. You give me that axe, I'm like, right, let's go, and try and chop it down. And I've had to learn in my career to just slow it down. Right, what do we need? Let's spend the next month absorbing as much information. Nothing's going to change in a month. We know it's all moving fast, but we've got 30 days. Let's commit to not doing anything for 30 days. And let's go and listen to that webinar. Let's go and attend that seminar. Let's go and bring that consultant in to give so they can give their perspective on the thing that we're talking about. And now we're in an informed position to be able to go and have the conversations with salespeople who may be very good and trusted advisors, but you still need to be able to have that foundation knowledge to know that what they're selling you is actually right for what you need. So I think we must, as perhaps as difficult as it might be during these fast moving times, to just slow things down a bit, learn, and then move forward from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great mantra for life in general, I think, isn't it? I mean, I've heard people talk about this in terms of how you build a career as well, because there's a propensity to want to push, get ahead, go as fast as you can, but actually, there's a great argument for slowing down and consolidating learning. So if you become a general manager, don't be in a rush to become a regional ops or an ops director. Get do a GM there, do a GM somewhere else, do a GM somewhere else, perhaps even. Same principle at any kind of stage in your career, and I think this is especially prevalent these days. There's this desire to just, much like your own ethos is just, let's go, let's get done, and actually just stopping yourself for a moment to take stock is sometimes a way more powerful move.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there's, as I say, I have that tendency. It takes me back to my football days, and I was awful, Phil, but I absolutely love playing football, and I was a defender, probably because at 5 years old, I was clearly not to be the lad that was up front. But I remember my coach. I was awful because as soon as somebody would have the ball, I just jump straight into them, and sometimes that would work. But when you got a bit better, and people started getting quite skillful, they were just waiting for me to jump, walk round, and dribble it past me. And that was why I was such a bad footballer. But I think it's sort of a continued metaphor there of we've just got to take the time to pause, and if we do so, it gives us the ability to learn and be and make decisions from experience. And I think, if we look at the people that we've worked with in our careers that perhaps have been promoted above their, promoted before they're ready, they're always generally, in my experience, they tend to be people that think they know everything. And actually, I've learned as I've progressed with my career and my business, is how much I don't know scares me more now than it really should have done at the, in the early points. You realize how much you don't know as you progress, and that keeps you grounded. Certainly, I've found that perspective. So I'm always mindful of people that claim to know, have all the answers, because they probably don't know how ignorant they are.
No, I completely agree. It's something that I've definitely learned as I got older as well. That it's I think I use a phraseology around the fact that actually when you realize that you really know nothing about anything, it's one of the most liberating experiences you can go through, because it changes the mindset into being this all-knowing, all-conquering thing that knows nothing, from someone who's inquisitive and someone who wants to learn about the thing in which you're being asked to be a specialist in. It doesn't just be, the example that I use is, if you can contemplate a scholar at a university who devotes their whole life to studying one subject within an inch of its life between start and finish of life, and by the end of life they still have not covered the entirety of that subject, then what possible chance do we have to learn in these moments in which we're just asked to do stuff and just get on with it and all of that? You can get a snapshot of what you need to get done, but none of us can claim that we're experts in anything.
No, I think that's fair. And, it takes me back to a business sort of course that I did many years ago, where the trainer talked about, you've got to have a PhD in your customer's problem. It's no good just having a surface level understanding of, oh, right, they need more direct bookings, fine, or whatever the problem is. You've really got to know in intricate detail the nuances surrounding that problem and why it's a problem. What, the answer might be simple. Well, we just need more website bookings and less reliance on OTAs. But it's a bit like saying, well, I want to lose weight. Well, I just need to move more and eat less.
Oh, is that what I'm doing wrong?
I know, but it's simple, and if you did that, you'd probably lose weight. But the nuance and the complexity around the problem is so vast that it's oversimplifying. I think that's where I always strive to really get that deep understanding about what our customers are really trying to achieve and why that problem is so much of a problem. But I digress.
No, it's a really good point, and I think that's how partnerships are formed, right? Rather than this kind of supplier and operator relationship that exists in some the best work is done. Come back to your original point around collaboration. Collaboration happens through partnership. Generally speaking, it doesn't happen through having a transactional approach to what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, as a sort of an aside, that's why we're just about to launch something called an advisory board, which is basically I spend a lot of my working week on calls with clients or with other hoteliers that perhaps are thinking about working with us. And the complexity and the problems that they're facing is so wide and varied. And often in the independent sector, where we do a lot of our work, they're not speaking to anyone. So the idea is, I don't want to give it too much of a plug, but it's a simple idea that we bring together around a virtual table general managers or owners or senior directors of hotels to work in collaboration and effectively help each other. And I think we're early days, but it's been so well received, and I think that speaks of what the challenge and the size of the problem that hoteliers and hospitality owners are facing right now.
Yeah, and please don't worry about plugging it. I'm down for shining a light on good positive stuff, and anything that helps move the dial in some positive way has got a space on this show for sure. So how did that come about? What was the thinking behind that, and what do you hope to achieve?
Well, I mean, I've been involved in sort of what you might call mastermind groups over the years, and it's been profound in terms of being around a table with like-minded people that have got similar but slightly different problems. And you know what, the magic happens not when you're working on your own problems, but with an outsider's perspective. you work on other people's problems, and it makes you think about things differently. You know, every time I would come away with pages of notes, and I just thought, there's so many hoteliers that are working in a sort of, you know, in isolation. They don't necessarily, often as their agency, they'll ask, you know, so what is this good? What, you know, what's the rest of the industry doing? They're often, if they're, especially if they're very operationally heavy, they don't have the time to put their ear to the ground. And, you know, I go to pretty much every major conference, but I know clients and you know, peers within the industry never been to a conference. So it's not like, you know, these live in-person events. They might be well attended, but they only represent a small proportion of the industry. And so I just felt now is the time more than ever, arguably, that you need the peer support. You need to understand what one particular hotel has done well to attract and retain staff, how they're managing the, you know, exorbitant food costs that, you know, beef has gone up by 60%, but we just can't keep putting it up. You know, how are we going to manage that? And so that, what I love about this industry is there's so many new and creative ways to tackle these problems, and not everyone will have them, but somebody will. And so I think by bringing peers together in a, you know, an environment where that's safe, that you're not in, you know, working in a non-compete, so you have to apply, and we select you based on, you know, lots of different criteria to make sure that we're getting the right people in the room. But I think, you know, I don't see enough of that going on across the industry that I've worked in for over 15 years. And I felt now is the time that we need to help bring people together.
Superb. Yeah. And it's almost like less talking about the problem, let's talk about the solutions. And the solution might not present itself in the first discussion, but but by having discussion and continuing the discussion, you got a far better chance of reaching an interesting outcome to whatever the problem is. Actually, I'm going to quote you now, actually, because this is from your form, in fact, and I thought this was it's a wonderful way to put it. That very simply, it kind of speaks to what you've just spoken about. The bold, harder decisions are often much less expensive than the easy decisions you choose to tolerate. I mean, that's gold. Like, drop the mic.
A rare moment of wisdom, Phil.
But it is true, right? You know, it's there's many kind of variations of similar sorts of things. The standard that you walk past is the standard that you choose to accept. You know, that it's that kind of thinking. The tougher decisions, or what feel like they might be the tougher decisions, are usually the right path, especially in a time that is tough. Like, if you take the easy path, you're just going to end up with the same sorts of things happening. It doesn't mean that solutions need to be simple and straightforward. It doesn't mean that they can't be, but at the same time, by avoiding the difficult options, it totally limits the playing field.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, especially when you run a business, and, you know, you have one eye on the P&L and where you're currently sitting, and if you lost some business, what that's going to do, and, you know, but if you gain some business, what that might do. You know, balancing the resource so that you're not too overstaffed, but, you know, all of these things come in, they're circulating in your own mind. And I think I look back at some of the challenge every time I've been bold and said, that's behavior that we're not prepared to tolerate, or we can't, you know, do you know what? I think our time together has gone as far as it possibly can. Every time I've made that bold decision, something really positive has come off it. And I think it's often the hard but necessary thing to do. And I think, you know, I'm thinking particularly of a client that we did some brilliant work. The results were phenomenal, but they've hired a marketing agency, and they're not briefing us on the outcomes that they want. They're briefing us on how they want us to get to the outcome.
Right.
And this happens, you know, more than it should. And I think it's irrespective of whether it's marketing services, legal service, any professional services. I think, you know, we all know that definition of madness, of doing the same thing and expecting a different result. I would reframe it and suggest that doing the same, you know, bringing in experts and then telling them how you want it done is the definition of madness. You know, why would you, you know, you don't buy a dog and bark yourself, and you know, some people do. I
Maybe
think,
the greatest saying that's ever happened on the podcast. That's
wow.
that's definitely going in the intro. That one.
And I feel that when you get those relationships in your business, whether it be internal with staff or external with clients, certainly my experience is simply that this is not serving anyone. And if we don't make the bold thing that is, it's easier to just tolerate it. It chips away at stuff. We've lost good people internally. We've lost good staff because we didn't make the hard decision. And I've learned that the hard way. And now I would like to think, certainly in the last few years, we've done that bold thing that, we will stick to our values of being ethical and being moral and doing things the right way, even if it really stings to do it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't align with our values. And 25-year-old me would really struggle with that. 40-year-old me, do you know what? I can, yeah, exactly. And also you just, life's short. Let's not spend our time working with people that we don't really like.
I mean, yeah, it's so easy when you say it out loud, isn't it? Yeah. But yeah, and also this is exactly the same principle. The point you made there around hiring a specialist and then telling them what to do. I think it might have been Richard Branson said something along those lines. That's the same internally, right? If you're hiring people into your team to do a specific role and then you just dictate to them what they should be doing, what is the point in hiring that expertise? It's madness. It is actual madness.
Yes, but I think this comes down to either ego or inexperience. When you know how much you don't know, then it is easy to say, I don't know, what do you think we should do, and put your trust in that person. But when you think you know everything, either through ego or inexperience, then it seems obvious that, well, no, it needs to be done my way because I know what I'm doing. But actually, yeah. And then the real challenge is when you've got extroverted know-it-alls and introverted real experts, and they just don't feel, they don't have that sort of social ability to argue their case or articulate why they're wrong. And that's when you get sort of dictatorial leaders, whether that be client to supplier, whether that be line manager to subordinate, however it manifests itself. So I think we have to work hard. Whether you're an introvert, you need to be able to articulate your case, but also spot a bad boss, client, however the framework. But when you spot them, it's not an easy one to deal with.
Yeah, totally. You got a podcast too. I mentioned it. I didn't mention the specific podcast at the beginning, but I mentioned you have all the kit because you are a podcaster. So tell us what it is and how did that come about?
Yeah, sure. So the Hotel Growth Podcast, we launched last year, so early 2025. And we just interview really senior operators across the industry. I do a lot of speaking on stage, so often we'll repurpose those presentations into podcasts and share the audio file in that format, and often talk about how to, for example, I've just done a keynote in Amsterdam called "How to Make Your Hotel Stand Out in AI Search," basically get recommended by ChatGPT, that sort of stuff. And what I really enjoy is having those conversations with senior people within the industry and getting their take. It's the whole podcast is all about growth. Everything we do at Formula is about growth. So growth means many different things to different businesses and different people, but channeling, going in deep on particular areas when it comes to growth. So my mind has gone instantly to a client we work with, Marsham Court Hotel in Bournemouth. They've really leaned into accessibility as part of their business model. They get now, they are one of the most accessible hotels in the UK. That has opened up a huge market for them. Because they offer a sort of a specialist. They don't just do accessible experiences, but they've leaned heavily into it. And we spend best part of an hour talking about how accessibility for them has actually produced. It's a good thing to be able to offer. It's catering to a certain sector of the market, but from a purely sort of impersonal business perspective, it has worked wonders because it is bringing it is now known as one of the most accessible hotels in the country, and so if you've got accessibility needs, that's your go-to.
Yeah.
And so growth can mean many different things to many different people and businesses, but I am fascinated, borderline obsessed with what businesses are doing to drive growth, and really that's what it's all about, all within the hotel sector. So we've had some brilliant conversations. We haven't been going as long as you, Phil, but maybe one day.
So I'm not sure anybody else has, to be honest. It's yeah, but no, I'm all for, like, we need as many voices as we can, raising standards in the bar and wherever that bar is, as many. So I am here for that, and wish you all the very best with that as well, and everything else. But I'm not going to let you go without, because you mentioned public speaking. I would imagine, given your expertise and knowledge, that that you could pack out a room with what you're talking about, but it's not always been the case, has it?
I thought you might bring that up.
Yes.
No,
I've literally written it down. My note is audience of one. Yeah. And that's what this story will be called.
Do you know, I think I've done quite well over my speaking career, which, generally speak on stage 20 times a year in different. I've had the good fortune to grow that to a point where I'm speaking in America and Europe and the UK. It's, I really enjoy doing it, and it's something that I think people get a lot of value from. But when you speak on stage enough times, something's going to go wrong somewhere. Thankfully, all of my slides have worked.
Yeah, touch every piece of wood that you can get your hands on. Yeah.
Yes. But there was one time where the event was quite poorly promoted. I can't even remember what I was talking about now. It was a couple of years ago. But there was a HR presentation on at the same time, which I found, I mean, no disrespect to those in HR, but it's generally not one to be well attended in the events that I've been to. And somehow this one person got the note that I was speaking on this particular subject, but nobody else did. And so I, you sort of do the polite thing of, well, just give it a few more minutes, see if anybody's going to turn up. And,
yeah, an hour later, you're like, we should probably do this.
Well, exactly, yes. And then, so we, left it 5 minutes, and I said, well, look, I can go through the slides, or if there's anything particular, we can just have a conversation if you like. So he said, no, go ahead, go and do the slides. So I walked him through these slides, and then 10 minutes in, somebody else walks in. It's like, oh, fantastic. Yeah, come on, sit down. Yeah.
Just doubled your audience.
I know, 100% increase. Yeah, instantly. But then I was speaking for no less than about 30 seconds, and he was like, oh, is this not the HR one?
Oh, my God. So you lost the other audience member as well.
So he walks out, and I don't know if you remember that moment on The Simpsons where the exact same thing. I haven't watched The Simpsons for about a decade, but that exact same thing happens where somebody's speaking at the front and it's like, oh, is this not the so-and-so thing? And so he runs out, and we both just burst into, me and my audience of one, just burst into laughter. So yeah, that was one of the less glamorous speaking events that I've done, but very funny nonetheless.
Yeah, no, I love it as well, because I don't love it because of what it put you through, but I suppose there's probably a lesson to be learned in there as well, right? As if you're asked to do a speaking gig now, I'm guessing you probably maybe ask, how is this being promoted? Yes. Who are the audience going to be, and all of that kind of stuff, which maybe in that moment you just turn up and you do these things, right? Because you're asked to do them, and you feel you can add value to their whoever is in the audience. But these are the sorts of things that happen.
Yes, yeah, always fun to look back on, but challenging at the time. But
yeah, it reminded me when I read it around the stand-up comedian John Bishop. He did a set around when he was starting out in stand-up comedy, and the first time he was trying to sell a gig, and he used the phraseology, and when I say no one came, like no one came, and he was literally doing a stand-up routine to an audience of one. And when you're, especially in that environment in stand-up comedy, I can imagine when you need the immediate vindication that what you're saying is funny. You need the audience, right? You need that. But just prompted that. I don't know why, but anyway, what a journey so far as well. Still a young guy, still got a lot to do, I would imagine. Wish you all the very best with the next phase. It sounds like you're continuing your evolutionary journey and it sounds like you will probably always do that too, in the sense that, what are the problems? Let's see what we can do about them. Kind of approach, and let's think extraordinarily about them, as opposed to just in the usual ways.
Yeah, I think so. It's something I get great enjoyment from, coming up with new ways to solve big problems. And I think there's nothing that I enjoy more than seeing really positive results in one form or another. It could be revenue. It could just be actually we delivered really significant value from what we're doing. That's where I get my real enjoyment from the work. So yeah, hopefully we can continue to do that for many years to come.
Good stuff. Brilliant. Well, look, thank you for spending time on a Wednesday after. Is it Wednesday? It is Wednesday. I lose track of the days these days. Yeah, wish you well with everything you got your head into, and I'm sure I'll catch up with you at something out and about in the big bad world at some point.
Cool. Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Phil.
Good man. Thanks, Adam. And there we have it. Adam showing that growth isn't just about technology, marketing, or AI. Sometimes it's about slowing down, asking better questions, and having the courage to do the hard things well. Obviously, also remembering not to bark if you've got a dog. We will, of course, be back next week with another awesome journey from hospitality, so have yourselves a cracking week, and I'll see you then.